Have you ever listened to your own life ending and decided to press record instead of run 10:17 on a Tuesday night? Elise Carter stood outside a glass-walled conference room on the 18th floor of Reed Harbor Hotel and heard her husband laugh while planning her destruction. Reed Harbor Hotel rose above the city, like a monument to wealth, all polished marble and hushed elegance. The kind of place where women who cleaned floors after midnight became invisible. Grant Halston sat inside that glass room with his attorney and a woman named Sloane Champagne glasses catching light like tiny warnings. For 2 years, Elise had been the shy girl who never questioned him. The wife who quit her paralegal career when her mother fell ill. The one who signed papers because love meant trust. But tonight, being invisible had become her greatest advantage. Grant's voice carried through the doorway, casual as ordering lunch. Transfer everything into the shell company before we announce the divorce. She won't understand the paperwork. Let her walk away with nothing except the debt. The words hit Elise like physical blows. Her cleaning cart rattled the sound impossibly loud in her ears. Her phone nearly slipped from trembling hands, the same hands that had signed their wedding license 7 years ago, believing in forever. She'd trusted him with everything, her savings, her signature, her future, her heart. Inside that glass room, Sloane laughed at something Grant said, the sound bright and careless. Elise watched her husband lean closer to this other woman, their body language speaking a language Elise had been too blind to read for months. Maybe years. That old paralegal certificate tucked away in her apartment felt like it belonged to someone braver. Someone whose voice still mattered. Someone who hadn't spent 2 years becoming smaller and smaller until she could almost disappear completely. But here's what Grant didn't know. This shy girl understood contracts better than anyone in that room. And this time she wasn't closing her eyes. She slid her phone beneath the cleaning cloth pressed record and whispered words only she could hear. This time I will not disappear. What began as the most heartwarming act of quiet courage would soon become the most inspirational comeback Grant Halston never saw coming. The apartment Elise rented smelled like old paint and yesterday's coffee. She locked the door 3 times before her hands steadied enough to check her phone. The recording sat there like evidence she didn't yet know how to use. Grant's text arrived at midnight. No warmth, no pretense. We'll sign papers next week. Don't make a scene. You know how I get. She knew his temper the way you know winter's coming quietly, inevitably with cold that seeps through walls. Elise pulled an old cardboard box from her closet. Her paralegal certificate lay inside, preserved behind plastic like a museum piece from someone else's life. Beneath it, legal notes in her own careful handwriting margins filled with questions and insights. She traced her finger over one notation, always read Clause 14 advice from Professor Hartman, who'd called her his most promising student. That felt like a lifetime ago. A different Elise. One who spoke up in class. One who believed her analysis mattered. At the bottom, a photo of her mother holding Elise's hand from a hospital bed, saying words that still echoed, "Don't let the world make you smaller, sweetheart." Her mother had died believing Elise would do important work, change things matter. Instead, Elise had let grief hollow her out, let Grant convince her she wasn't strong enough to return to law. But the world had made her smaller. One crisis at a time. One signature on documents she didn't fully read. One moment of trust that turned into 2 years of calculated deception. She set down the photo and opened a notebook, the kind she used to fill with case notes. Time to remember who she'd been before Grant taught her to doubt every instinct. Elise logged into their joint bank account. The balance made her stomach drop. Months of gradual withdrawals, transfers to accounts she'd never heard of, numbers that didn't make sense unless you understood what Grant was building a financial maze designed to trap her in obligation while he walked away with everything. She thought about calling someone, her best friend Marissa, an attorney, anyone. But this shy girl had learned that asking for help meant admitting you were drowning, and drowning women didn't get second chances in Grant's world. They got dismissed. The next morning, she pushed her cleaning cart through Reed Harbor Hotel's executive floor like a shadow. The carpets here were plush. The air smelled like expensive decisions that moved millions. Elise kept her presence small, forgettable. Then the wind came. A gust through an open office sent papers scattering into the hallway. Elise bent to gather them automatically, the way people accustomed to invisibility clean up messes they didn't make. Her eyes caught the letterhead. A shell company. The same one Grant's attorney had discussed in that glass room. You don't need to apologize. The voice stopped her cold. Nathan Reed stood in the doorway, CEO of Reed Harbor Group, the kind of self-made success whose face appeared in business magazines with headlines about integrity and impossible odds. He studied her with an expression she couldn't interpret. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reed. The wind just... I said you don't need to apologize." He stepped closer, his gaze dropping to the papers in her hands. Recognition flickered across his features. "Where did these come from?" Elise's throat tightened. She tried to return them, tried to fade back into invisibility. But Nathan didn't take them. He simply asked, "Do you understand what you're holding?" The question hung between them like a test she hadn't studied for. Elise looked down at the contract. Clause 14 practically glowed on the page. The legal tripwire Grant's attorney had designed. The kind that looked protective until you understood what it was engineered to do. Clause 14, she heard herself say. It's structured to shift liability without transparency. Anyone signing would assume they're protected, but the secondary attachment redirects obligation through a guarantor mechanism that isn't disclosed in the primary document. Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Nathan tilted his head slightly. "You're not only a cleaner. I was a paralegal." The confession came out quiet. "Before my mother got sick. Before everything changed." Nathan took the contract carefully, his expression shifting into something focused and sharp. "This company has been under investigation for months. Financial fraud, asset concealment, the kind of operation that destroys lives while lawyers profit." He looked at her again, truly seeing her this time. "How did you access this?" Elise's heart hammered. "I clean the conference rooms. Sometimes people leave documents behind." "Sometimes," Nathan said slowly, "people leave evidence behind." He offered her a business card. Simple white cardstock, just a name and number. If you understand contracts, you understand consequences. And if someone's using these documents to harm you or anyone else, you need better support than silence. Elise stared at the card. "Why would you help me?" "Because," Nathan said, and something in his voice carried old pain turned purposeful. "I've seen what men like this do to women who trust them. I made a promise years ago that if I ever had the power to stop it, I would." He walked away before she could respond, leaving this shy girl standing in that hallway, holding a stranger's kindness and the first thread of genuine hope she'd felt in 2 years. It was the beginning of what would become the most inspirational journey of her life, though she didn't know it yet. But hope becomes dangerous when the wrong person discovers you have it. Elise made her first mistake on Thursday afternoon. She trusted her oldest friend. Marissa Lane had been part of her life since 7th grade, back when they dreamed about careers and families and futures that felt limitless. Now Marissa sold real estate with aggressive optimism that made clients sign before finishing the fine print. They met at a coffee shop downtown. Marissa ordered something complicated and asked about the divorce with the careful sympathy people use when they already know the answer. "He's going to take everything, isn't he?" Marissa stirred her drink slowly. Grant always did excel at strategy. Elise wrapped both hands around her mug, seeking warmth. "I have evidence," she said quietly. "A recording of him planning everything with his attorney." Marissa's spoon went still. "You recorded Grant when?" "At the hotel. He didn't realize I was nearby." "Elise." Marissa leaned closer, her voice dropping into concern mode. "That's serious. What will you do with it?" "I don't know yet. I just needed someone to know. Someone on my side." Marissa reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Always, sweetie. You know that." That night, Grant appeared at the apartment. He hadn't been home in weeks. Not since moving most of his belongings to the downtown condo Elise wasn't supposed to know existed. But here he stood in the doorway, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, and wine she recognized as expensive. "Hey." His voice carried false warmth, the tone he'd used before her mother died, before masks became permanent. "I've been thinking we should talk. Actually talk, not just text." Ice spread through Elise's chest. Every instinct screamed danger. This was the man who'd called her dramatic when she questioned a credit card charge, who'd sighed with theatrical patience whenever she wanted to discuss finances, who'd somehow convinced her that being concerned about their money meant she didn't trust him, and she'd believed it. Believed that good wives didn't question, that love meant accepting someone's word as truth. "It's late, Grant." "I know, but..." He set the wine bottle on the counter with deliberate care, the gesture almost tender. She'd seen him use this move before, calculated softness before delivering a blow. "You've seemed distracted lately. Stressed. I've been concerned." He moved closer, casual as a predator. "Are you spending more time on your phone? I noticed you replaced the old one." "I lost it." "You lost it." He tasted the lie, finding it interesting. "That's odd. Marissa mentioned you showed her something today. Something recorded, the world tilted sideways." Elise's mind raced backward through every word shared with Marissa, every detail trusted to her. And she saw clearly now what loneliness had hidden Marissa's questions hadn't been concern. They'd been intelligence gathering. "Elise." Grant's voice dropped lower, softer, the kind of soft that preceded storms. "Show me your phone. I'm worried about you. About what you might do if you're not thinking straight." "I told you. I lost it." He studied her face with the focus of someone reading a balance sheet. Then he leaned close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive, familiar, and whispered, "You think you're smarter than me." He left without another word. The threat lingered like smoke after fire. Elise waited until his car pulled away. Then she opened her laptop with shaking hands and accessed the folder she'd been building. Bank statements, transfer receipts, shell company documents, the recording. Everything Grant had constructed over 2 years of meticulous planning. A new email waited in her inbox. Unknown sender. No subject line. Just an attachment. She opened it with growing dread. It was a personal guarantee document. Her signature at the bottom, except Elise had never seen this paper before in her life. The terms were devastating. Personal liability for business debts. Waiver of spousal asset protection. Acknowledgement of sole responsibility for loans she'd never taken. Her signature. Her name. Forged so skillfully she almost believed she'd signed it herself. Grant wasn't just planning to leave her with nothing. He was engineering a debt trap that would follow her for decades, destroy her credit, make her unemployable, cage her in paperwork and lies while he moved forward unencumbered. Something shifted inside Elise. Not panic, clarity. She thought about her mother in that hospital bed, telling her never to let the world make her smaller. She thought about Nathan Reed's business card on her nightstand. She thought about 2 years of signing documents because Grant said to trust him, 2 years of choosing invisibility because it seemed safer than being noticed. And she realized what Grant had never understood. Women who learn to be invisible see everything. They're present when powerful men scheme. They notice the evidence left behind. They understand systems designed to erase them because they've been erased before. This shy girl who'd spent years making herself small was about to become something Grant couldn't ignore. Elise opened a new document and began working, not frantically, methodically. A systematic breakdown of every financial move Grant had made, cross-referenced with dates, account numbers, legal statutes. She worked the way her professors had praised before life interrupted her career, precise, thorough, undeniable. By dawn, she had something that looked less like revenge and more like documented truth, organized, cited, impossible to dismiss. She picked up Nathan Reed's business card and composed a single email. Subject: evidence of systematic fraud, time sensitive. 2 words in the body: help me. What would happen next would transform this heartwarming story of a woman finding her voice into the most inspirational comeback neither Grant nor his attorney saw coming. Nathan's response came at 6:43 in the morning. Not an email. A phone call. Morrison Street Cafe, 8 o'clock. Come alone, but you won't be alone. Elise walked in, wearing her only professional outfit from her paralegal days, though it didn't fit quite right anymore. Nathan sat in the back corner beside a woman who looked built to win arguments, sharp suit, sharper eyes, the kind of presence that made people sit straighter. Elise Carter, meet Rachel Moreno. Nathan gestured to the empty chair. She specializes in divorce cases involving marital fraud. She's seen operations like your husband's before. Rachel skipped pleasantries. Show me what you have. Elise opened her laptop and turned it toward them. Rachel's expression remained neutral as she scrolled through the evidence, but her stillness felt like gathering thunder. This is excellent work, Rachel said finally. Your husband spent 2 years setting traps, but he left digital footprints in every single one. She looked up. The forged guarantee, that's a felony. The shell company transfers without your knowledge, that's asset concealment. The systematic account drainage while preparing divorce papers, that's textbook financial manipulation. Can we stop him? Elise's voice came out smaller than intended. We can do better than stop him. Rachel leaned back. We can let him believe he's winning. Elise blinked. I don't understand. Nathan spoke for the first time since introductions. Your husband wants the assets, the house, the car, the company shares, everything of apparent value. His eyes held something she couldn't quite identify. But assets aren't the same as liabilities, and men desperate enough to commit fraud are usually desperate enough to sign documents without reading carefully. Rachel's smile wasn't kind. We're going to give Grant exactly what he wants and attach exactly what he deserves. Understanding crept in like cold water. The debt. All of it. Every penny, Rachel confirmed. Structured through clauses that mirror his own shell company tactics. Legal, binding, irrevocable, and the best part, he'll sign it himself because he'll be too focused on congratulating himself to notice what he's actually agreeing to. Nathan's voice dropped. Before we proceed, you need to understand why I'm helping you. Elise waited, barely breathing. My mother lost everything in her divorce. The words came out controlled, but beneath them lived old pain transformed into purpose. My biological father planned it for exactly 2 years, transferred assets, left her with debt she couldn't comprehend or escape. She had a breakdown, spent 3 years recovering. His jaw tightened slightly. I was 12. I watched her try to rebuild from nothing because she'd trusted the wrong person. Nathan built Reed Harbor Group specifically to help people his father destroyed. Rachel added quietly, "This isn't charity, Elise. This is principle." Elise felt something crack open behind her ribs. "I'm only a cleaner now." "No." Nathan's certainty was absolute. "You're the woman who saw through a scheme designed by attorneys paid to be smarter than everyone else. You compiled evidence that would impress law school professors. You're not only anything. You're the person who saw the truth when everyone else was looking away." The cafe seemed very quiet suddenly. "I'm afraid," Elise whispered, "of what he'll do when he realizes. Of what it means to challenge someone who's always been stronger." Rachel's expression softened marginally. "Strength isn't volume, Mrs. Carter. Your husband's been loud for 2 years. Planning, scheming, making certain everyone knew he controlled the narrative." She closed the laptop gently. "But you were quiet. And in that silence you gathered every piece of evidence he thought he'd hidden. That's not weakness. That's strategy worthy of respect." Nathan stood. "We have 5 days until mediation. Rachel will draft the settlement agreement. You'll review every single word, ask questions about anything unclear. And when Grant sits across from you expecting to watch you lose everything," he paused deliberately, "you're going to let him think he's succeeded." Elise looked at both business cards now sitting on the table. Official. Real. A path forward through territory she'd been terrified to walk. "What if I can't do this?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Nathan's answer was simple. "Then we walk away, and you find another path." "But Elise..." He waited until she met his eyes. "I've watched how carefully you move through the world paying attention when everyone assumes invisibility means ignorance. You've been preparing for this moment without realizing it. Your husband trained you to stay silent. But silence and surrender aren't the same thing." Outside morning light cut through the cafe windows in sharp, clean angles. Rachel gathered her files. "I'll call tomorrow with the draft. Read every word 3 times. Question anything that feels wrong. Remember, this isn't about revenge. It's about consequences. Grant's been writing checks he assumed you'd cash. We're just ensuring he signs the final receipt." Elise walked out of that cafe different than she'd entered. Not rescued, not saved, but seen, finally, completely devastatingly seen. What began as a heartwarming story of a shy girl finding unexpected allies was becoming the most inspirational act of quiet justice Grant Halston never imagined possible. In 4 days, Grant would walk into mediation thinking he'd secured his victory. He had no idea he was about to sign his own defeat. The mediation room smelled like expensive carpet and the kind of neutral beige paint designed to keep emotions contained. Elise sat across from Grant for the first time in 3 weeks, wearing that same professional outfit, but carrying herself differently. Straighter, quieter, deliberate. Grant looked triumphant. He'd worn his best suit, the one that made him appear like someone who always won. Sloane sat 2 chairs down, pretending to check her phone but tracking everything with the focus of someone whose future depended on this conversation. ending quickly. Grant's attorney arranged folders with surgical precision. We've prepared a settlement agreement we believe is fair and efficient. Mrs. Carter receives the liquid savings account, approximately $18,000, and Mr. Halston retains the house vehicles and all business assets. Rachel didn't look up from her documents. We've reviewed your proposal. My client has a counteroffer. Grant actually laughed. A counteroffer, Elise, seriously. You don't understand any of this. Just sign so we can both move forward. Elise kept her gaze down. Let him see what he expected, the shy girl who'd been signing papers for 2 years without questioning them. Rachel slid a new contract across the table. Mr. Halston receives the house, the car the company shares, and all designated assets listed in Attachment A. Mrs. Carter waives all claims to said assets. In exchange, Mr. Halston assumes sole responsibility for all associated debts, liabilities, and financial obligations, as detailed in Attachment B. Grant barely glanced at it. His attorney started reading more carefully, but Grant waved him off with irritation. She's surrendering everything for nothing. Perfect. He looked at Elise with something resembling pity. I expected this to be harder. Guess I overestimated you after all. There's also a waiver of independent audit, Rachel continued smoothly. Standard and expedited divorces. Both parties accept asset valuations as presented without requiring third-party verification. Fine. Whatever gets this done. Where do I sign? His attorney's face had drained of color. He leaned over, whispering urgently, but Grant pulled away, annoyed. I've been planning this for 2 years. I know exactly what I'm doing. Just show me the signature lines. Sloane shifted uncomfortably, checking her watch. Grant, maybe we should take a moment to... It's handled, Sloane. He signed with flourish, each page turned like dealing cards in a game already won. There. Done. Elise, it's been enlightening. Good luck with your cleaning career. The mediator collected the documents, making everything official and binding. Grant stood to leave. That's when his attorney finished reading Attachment B, all 17 pages of carefully itemized debt, business loans, shell company liabilities, and personal guarantees that Grant had just claimed as solely his responsibility. The attorney's voice came out strangled. Grant, wait. What now? You just accepted all the debt. The room went absolutely still. Grant grabbed the contract, flipping through pages, his expression transforming from confident to confused to horrified. What is this? These numbers, this wasn't. Rachel's voice remained professionally pleasant. Attachment B details all liabilities associated with the assets you insisted on retaining. The house carries a secondary mortgage you took out 6 months ago. The company has outstanding loans and liens. The shell corporations you established carry significant financial obligations. By signing, you assumed sole legal and financial responsibility for everything. She trapped me. Grant turned on Elise, fury replacing confusion. You don't know how to do this. You're just, you're nobody. Elise raised her head slowly, met his eyes for the first time in years without flinching. No, Grant. Her voice was steady, quiet, final. You set traps for 2 years, planned every detail, signed my name to documents I never saw. You taught me exactly how this works. She paused, letting the words settle. I just stopped closing my eyes. The mediator's voice cut through the silence. Mr. Halston, you waived independent audit rights. You signed the agreement. Unless you can demonstrate coercion or fraud, which would require you to admit to your own fraudulent actions, first, this settlement is legally binding. Grant's attorney was already packing his briefcase, expression tight. Sloane had her phone out, typing rapidly. Probably a resignation, Elise thought distantly. Rachel stood gathering her materials with calm efficiency. "We're done here." Justice had arrived quietly in the form of a signature Grant never bothered to read, but the real healing was only beginning. 6 weeks later, autumn arrived in the city like permission to begin again. Grant Halston's carefully constructed life unraveled with systematic precision. The company discovered his fraudulent transfers and terminated him immediately. Civil suits followed from business partners, from creditors, from people who'd trusted documents bearing his signature. His reputation dissolved faster than his bank account, which turned out to contain far less than he'd claimed and far more liability than he'd understood. Sloan left town without forwarding information, changed industries, disappeared. Marissa tried calling twice before realizing Elise had blocked her number. Some friendships, it turned out, had been transactional all along. The realization stung less than expected. What surprised Elise more was the envelope from Mrs. Dorothy Wells, the elderly hotel guest, whose room she'd once cleaned with extra care. Inside was a card with a watercolor sunrise and 8 words in careful handwriting. "Your voice is small, but your life will be big." Elise kept it on her desk at her new position, compliance and contract support, at Reed Harbor Group. Nathan had offered the role with the understanding she'd need additional certification, which he'd fund as a professional investment. She'd accepted knowing this was opportunity, not rescue. A door opened, not a debt owed. The office had windows, real windows, overlooking the city instead of staring at floors. Some mornings, Elise would arrive early just to watch the sunrise paint the buildings gold. She'd spent so many years in darkness, metaphorical and literal, that natural light felt like a gift she was still learning to accept. Her colleagues treated her with respect, asked her opinion on contracts, valued her insights. The first time someone said, "Elise caught an error that could have cost us thousands," she'd nearly cried in the bathroom, not from sadness but from the unfamiliar weight of being seen as competent, valuable, worthy. On a Friday evening, Nathan stopped by her desk as the building emptied for the weekend. He looked tired, the good kind that came from meaningful work. "Still afraid?" he asked. It had become their private acknowledgement, this callback to her confession in the cafe. "Every day," Elise admitted. "But I'm learning that fear and courage aren't opposites. They're just walking in the same direction." Nathan held out a small envelope. "There's an interior design exhibition opening downtown tomorrow night. Contemporary residential spaces. I remember you mentioned once that you used to dream about that kind of work." Elise accepted the envelope carefully. 2 tickets inside. "I can't repay everything you've done," she started. "Then don't." Nathan's voice was gentle. "I didn't open the door so you'd owe me, Elise. I opened it so you'd walk through. What you build on the other side, that's entirely yours." "Is this?" She wasn't sure how to ask. "What is this exactly?" "It's 2 tickets to an exhibition," he said simply. "One evening, not to forget what happened, but to begin again. Slowly. With someone who truly sees you." Outside the windows, city lights began flickering on one by one, illuminating the darkness in small, persistent ways. Elise looked at Nathan Reed, this man who'd carried his own wounds into something purposeful, who'd recognized her worth when she'd forgotten it herself, and felt something shift. Not desperate, not dependent, just opening. "Tomorrow night," she said. Nathan smiled. Not the CEO smile. Something real. "Tomorrow night." He offered his hand. And this time, without hesitation or fear, Elise took it. This heartwarming story of a shy girl who found her voice had become the most inspirational testament to the truth that being overlooked doesn't mean being worthless. Sometimes you're just standing in the wrong place to shine.